So here's a photo of the Mar-A-Lago spa. So how did Virginia Giuffre, who recently died by suicide in Australia, get a job at the Mar-A-Lago spa? You see her right there at the age of 16, just as she was turning 17 years old. And then she was ultimately sex trafficked by Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, who walked over a few blocks from where they lived to the Mar-A-Lago spa. They saw Virginia Giuffre wearing a tiny miniskirt, again, underage girl working there, a tight shirt, reading a book outside of the spa. They offered her a job to work with Jeffrey Epstein, and then she was sex trafficked. So the Mar-A-Lago spa almost seemed like a grooming ground, if you will, for underage girls as part of this funnel for Jeffrey Epstein, and he used it there for Virginia Giuffre. Also, if you listen to what Donald Trump said recently, he said there were other girls who were stolen. It's not clear specifically who Donald Trump is talking about there. But here's Virginia Giuffre at around the age 16 or 17. Here's a photo of her. You'll see Ghislaine Maxwell there as she got sex trafficked, and there you see Prince Andrew. Here's a photo of Ghislaine Maxwell holding up a photo of herself, and before she died by suicide, you see the trauma and stress that she was under. So take a look right here at this photo. These were the ads that the Trump Mar-A-Lago spa would place in newspapers and in magazines during the late 90s, early 2000s. Spa attendants wanted. The Trump spa at the Mar-A-Lago club is currently seeking attendants for their men's and ladies' locker room. College students are encouraged to apply. Call Carol Ash. That's the person who was the kind of manager of the spa. And then it says drug, smoke-free workplace, and then send your resume. Eventually, Carol Ash would have her deposition taken, where she said really the most important factor was finding attractive women to work at the spa, and in this case, underage girls. Then here's another ad, spa attendants. Trump spa at Mar-A-Lago seeks spa attendants for our ladies and our men's locker rooms. Please call, and then it gives another number right there. I want to go through some more details here. Carol Ash's deposition, a deposition of another woman who was sex trafficked by Epstein, who traveled with Virginia Giuffre in 2001. I want to look at contemporaneous records like this article from the New York Post from October 15th, 2007, where at least one anonymous source at Mar-A-Lago said then it was pretty well known that Epstein would take these underage girls from the Mar-A-Lago spa. Here it is, October 15th, 2007. Let me just read for you what page 6 of the New York Post said then. I want to tie this all together. Lawyers for Manhattan billionaire investor Jeffrey Epstein, who's agreed to plead guilty to soliciting underage hookers, this is how they refer to it in 2007, are bracing for a slew of lawsuits from as many as 40 young women who came to his Palm Beach mansion for massage sessions, page 6 has learned. It goes on to say, meanwhile, the Mar-A-Lago club in Palm Beach last night confirmed a website report that Epstein has been banned there. But it wasn't until 2007 that they said Epstein was banned there. And in 2007, Epstein denied that report publicly, and Trump never made any statement about that. So here's what the New York Post wrote. Again, this is October 15th, 2007. It goes on to say he, meaning Epstein, would use the spa to try to procure girls. But one of them, a masseuse about 18 years old, he tried to get her to do things, a source told us. Her father found out about it and went absolutely apeshit. Epstein's not allowed back. But then Epstein told the New York Post that he is not banned from Mar-A-Lago and says, in fact, he was recently invited to an event there. That's from 2007. I want to give a hat tip to my guy, Jonathan Larson's right here. And he did this great report on his Substack. Trump's Mar-A-Lago spa was tailor-made for Epstein. The Trump spa sought young, attractive college students to wear mini skirts and skin-tight tops. Underage girls, they get a job at the spa. They frankly don't have any qualifications at all. Like Virginia Giuffre was previously homeless. She was described in depositions as a troubled underage girl who got this job there. And she was just kind of hanging outside of the spa. And that's when Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell approached her and said, hey, we see you're working at this spa. And again, Trump would have them wear these underage girls wear these small mini skirts and these tight shirts. And to me, in my opinion, that starts the grooming process there. And then Epstein walks over and says, hey, you want to work at my private massage sessions? And then the sex trafficking begins. It seems, in my opinion, that was kind of the funnel that was taking place. This article explains miniskirts weren't allowed at Mar-A-Lago, the employee handbook said, but for Virginia Giuffre, who killed herself in April, who died by suicide, said the Trump spa at Mar-A-Lago had uniforms for its female workers, often the underage girls. White miniskirt and a skin-tight white polo top. Job listings from the local paper, I read you some of them right there, at the time encouraged college students to apply. Trump's human resources manager said Trump wanted young, attractive people. These and other unearthed details about Mar-A-Lago during Trump's friendship with Jeffrey Epstein may address a question Trump hasn't been asked. Why did Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell make Trump's club one of the spots where they hunted for victims? Even the club knew what Epstein was doing. I read for you the New York Post article in 2007, where they said Epstein used Trump's spa to procure the underage girls. And it's not hard to see why. When Giuffre applied for work at Mar-A-Lago, it was right around when she was 16, 17 years old. Her lack of any work experience wasn't a barrier. Neither was the fact that she hadn't even finished high school at that point. She wasn't even in school at the time of her job interview. Her lawyer later said she was a troubled teen living with her boyfriend. The slender, long-haired, underage, blonde girl gets the job. And so what were her duties there? To make tea, to keep the women's locker and restrooms neat, not mopping floors, more like decorative folding of toilet paper. And again, it's not clear how demanding her job duties actually were. When Epstein's partner in crime, Ghislaine Maxwell, showed up and spotted her, Joffrey was sitting outside reading a book on the clock. These and other forgotten details about Trump's young female workers don't just raise troubling questions about the past, they cast doubt on Trump's new claims about what he really knew at the time of Epstein's predation of underage girls. But if Trump knew about Jeffrey being recruited and truly admonished Epstein about it, why would Epstein just months later take Joffrey to Trump's Atlantic casino and alert Trump that they were coming? I want to read for you some deposition testimony, if I may, right here. Some of this deposition testimony is a bit disturbing, but let's take a look at it. I want to read you this deposition testimony from, it was taken in 2016, but it's about a 2001 April event. Joanna Sjoberg, one of Epstein's sex trafficking victims. Here's the question. Did you go into Atlantic City? Yes, went to one of Trump's casinos. Did you actually go into the casino itself with Epstein? Sjoberg, yes. Do you recall Virginia Giuffre being present with you? Yes. Question. How did it come to be that you were in a casino in Atlantic City? Sjoberg. As we were flying, Jeffrey said, why don't you go sit in the cockpit to check out the landing? So we were sitting there, and the pilots told me to go back and tell him that we can't land in New York and that we were going to have to land in Atlantic City. Jeffrey Epstein said, great, we'll call up Trump and we'll go to, I don't recall the name of the casino, but we'll go to his casino. Joffrey was not going to be allowed to gamble, and so I spent time with her. We were just walking around. I don't remember what we did because either she didn't have an ID or she was too young. I don't remember specifically why. I just knew that she could not gamble. Question. Okay, so you walked around with her in Atlantic City? In the casino. We never left the casino. That was one of Epstein's sex trafficking victims right there, talking about how after Giuffre was, to use Donald Trump's word, stolen from the Mar-A-Lago spa, Virginia Giuffre rather, was brought over to the Atlantic City Hotel by Epstein with another sex trafficking victim. So Epstein procuring the sex trafficking victims from Mar-a-Lago, bringing them later, or as Donald Trump says, stealing them, and then bringing them to Donald Trump's other properties like the casino right there. And I'll just say this, as a litigator, there have been lots of lawsuits that have been filed. And this is an interesting angle, I think, for some of these sex trafficking victims. They'd have to explore the statute of limitations here. But conspiracy to commit sex trafficking on a civil lawsuit, I'm not quite sure what the statute of limitations is because some states have changed their rules. But I've seen lots of hotels and casinos and properties get sued for aiding and abetting sex trafficking by turning a blind eye to what was taking place in their facilities. I want to talk about this. We've got some deposition transcripts of Virginia Giuffre in the case Giuffre versus Ghislaine Maxwell. That's where a lot of this data comes from, the lawsuits by Giuffre against Ghislaine Maxwell. In 2016, Giuffre was questioned under oath about Trump's spa's onboarding process. So, did they give you any training at all? Just pause there. If this was a legit situation, okay, don't you think they would give some training to take the job serious if it was more than just a hunting ground for Epstein? Now, I don't know one way or another. I'm just suggesting that if this was a serious job, you would train people for the job, right? So did they give you any training? No. Did they show you how to work the lockers? Giuffre. Well, I mean, there was a girl who already worked there at the front desk. I think she helped make appointments and greeted people. And then she just told me my duties in the locker room were to, make tea. I had never made tea before, so that was fun. Learn how to make tea. Clean up after the ladies who had been in the locker room. Make sure the bathrooms were kept nice and tidy. You fold the toilet paper into a little triangle every time anyone went into the toilet. Clean up the sink area. It was a very crazy job. Then she also testified about the uniform Mar-a-Lago provided her. White miniskirt with little white polo top with emblem of Mar-a-Lago on it. Giuffre wasn't the only one in the spa uniform, according to her 26 deposition. Who else did they make wear, to use your words, a tiny white mini skirt with a white polo emblem on it, and a skin tight, in a subsequent portion, she referred to it as a skin tight white polo top. This is how you're dressing 16 and 17-year-old girls in a spa? I mean, just like, let's pull back for a second, right? That's what was going on there. Then it goes on to say, who else was wearing the uniform? The other locker, the lady that did the front desk next to the locker rooms. She had the same one, Giuffre. Yes. Giuffre. I don't know why I keep saying Giuffre. Giuffre, yes. Giuffre. We had our uniforms. Everyone else had their own. Who was we? Well, the girls that worked in the meet and greet area, me and the other girl with the curly hair I told you about, had our own uniform. So the girl with the curly hair, Giuffre previously explained, was the one who taught her how to make tea. Someone who may have been in her 20s. So if you think about what her job responsibilities were, just think about it, okay? 16 years old, no qualifications, previously homeless. She's standing there at the spa, being forced to wear a tiny miniskirt and a skin-tight white top to basically make tea, to fold some toilet paper into triangles, okay? And within a short period of time of her doing that, in walks Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. So to me, if that doesn't raise red flags, then I don't know what other red flags should be raised and signaling SOS, SOS, SOS right there. So then now take that. What did Donald Trump say last week? right? According to Trump last week, Giuffre was one of the people Epstein stole. In a series of exchanges with the media, Trump was asked whether some were young women. Trump hemmed and hawed before saying the answer is yes. Question: what was their jobs of the people who Epstein stole from you? Trump: in the spa? Question: in the spa, yes. Trump: answer: yeah, the people that work in the spa. I have a great spa, one of the best spas in the world at Mar-A-Lago, and people were taken out of the spa, hired by him. In other words, gone. And other people would come and complain, this guy is taking people from the spa. I didn't know that. And then when I heard about it, I told him, I said, listen, we don't want you taking our people, whether it was spa or not spa. I don't want them taking people. And he was fine. And then not too long after that, he did it again. And I said, out of here. Mr. President, did one of those stolen persons, did that include Virginia Giuffre? Trump: I don't know. I think she worked at the spa. I think so. I think that was one of the people. Yeah, he stole her. Okay, now the time frame again, Giuffre is there in 2000. In 2001, after he quote-unquote stole her, he brings her to the Trump casino in Atlantic City with another sex trafficking victim. I read for you that deposition testimony. In 2002, Trump says Epstein is a great guy who likes women on the younger side. Years before that, Donald Trump and Epstein held an event at Mar-A-Lago where they brought in 30 beauty pageant people and models of indeterminate and unclear ages just for them too. And they told the people who procured those girls or women, unclear, that they were there to meet the VIPs. So you had, and only Trump and Epstein were there. And then you have Epstein giving the quote I just told you about in 2007. You read the New York Post, I showed it to you, saying that I was still invited to a Trump event as late as 2007. Okay, now tying some of this together right now as well. We've had Michael Wolff, Trump's former biographer, who was going to be a biographer potentially for Jeffrey Epstein, and he talked about how the falling out between Trump and Epstein really began in 2004, 2005, and then lasted for a few years over a real estate deal in Palm Beach, where Epstein told Trump about a property that Epstein wanted to buy for $38 million right there on the beach. Trump then bought that property from underneath Epstein, and Epstein believed Trump didn't have the money to buy it. So Trump then buys it, I think in cash or with a lot of cash for $45 million. And Epstein's like, I just showed you I was going to buy that. Then 2 to 3 years later, Trump flips that very same house with very few, if any, alterations for somewhere close to $100 million, $90+ million to a Russian oligarch. So Trump buys it, flips it to a Russian oligarch, and then Epstein was wondering what the hell just happened. Epstein speculated, I don't know this. I'm being clear that I'm just giving you what Epstein allegedly told Michael Wolff. But Epstein wondered, could this be some form of money laundering taking place? Because how could you double the price on this property in 2 years with this Russian oligarch? Did the Russian oligarch help Donald Trump buy it for $45 million and then flip it later for 2 years later as a way for Russians to get their money into the United States and clean the money? I don't know. I don't think Wolff knows. That was allegedly conveyed to Wolff from Epstein, unclear. But then Epstein had always speculated then, based on what Trump knew about Epstein, Virginia Giuffre, what was happening in the spa, what happened before then, as Epstein was thinking about suing Trump for screwing him on this deal out of $50 million or so. Then there was an anonymous source that told the officials what Epstein was doing. And Epstein had always speculated, and this was one of the reasons the friendship broke apart as well, was Trump the guy who was the anonymous source that informed on Epstein based on what Trump knew Epstein was doing? to stop Epstein from suing Trump on this real estate transaction. Wow, right? Kind of a bombshell. But I wanted to go through what was going on there. Now, the one piece of update that I want to let you know as well. So Ghislaine Maxwell's close friends, these Ghislaine Maxwell influencers, they're on social media right now. These are some of the people who were invited into the White House, I may add, for the Epstein Phase 1 binders. Remember those MAGA influencers? Some of those people were very close pro-Ghislaine people, which we reported at the time was odd. But now some of them are saying they've spoken to Ghislaine and Ghislaine's people recently, and they believe that moving Ghislaine to the Texas facility where she's under minimum security right now at this like resort at Camp Bryant is the next phase, and she's about to be put under home confinement and then potentially released or pardoned or having her sentence commuted by Donald Trump. She knows all of the secrets, Ghislaine. She's a keeper of these secrets. I'll do another video on Ghislaine's background, how her father was Robert Maxwell, a really wealthy person in the UK. She was a big socialite in the UK. Her father died in a mysterious way, allegedly urinating off of his yacht called the Lady Ghislaine. He owned the Sunday Mirror. He wrote about Trump and young women, including Ghislaine getting Trump young women in 1997. He didn't write about it. He owned the Sunday Mirror, which would write about Ghislaine helping Trump find young women. There's a whole article about that as well. But Robert Maxwell was allegedly peeing on the yacht. He falls in the water, dies, and then it turns out that he was engaged in a massive pension fund fraud, stealing money from pension funds. The banks call his loans. The family goes totally bankrupt. Ghislaine has her reputation destroyed in the late 80s, early 90s. She's already kind of linked up with Epstein. She comes to the United States to make a name for herself as Epstein's co-conspirator or sidekick girlfriend. Right? Only, MeidasTouch gives that to you, but hat tip to the Substack that I read over there. I thought that he did a great job, and I want to work with him more. I thought that was a very well-researched piece as well. So hat tip to him, hat tip to the team right there, and great work. One more time, his name was Jonathan Larson. Great work, John. Everybody hit subscribe. Let's get to 6 million. Thanks for watching, everybody.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Meidas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.